Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you here to our presentation on nutrition. Melanie Silverman is here with us today. Melanie is a registered dietitian and board certified lactation consultant. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Indiana University in chemistry and Spanish and her Master of Science from Rush University in clinical nutrition. Melody spent 7 years at the University of Chicago Medical Centers in the burn unit, PICU, NICU, and pediatric outpatient clinics. She is currently the Chief Clinical Officer for Pacify. Melanie has worked with children diagnosed with Prader Willi Syndrome since 2004, and her mission is to help as many families as possible navigate the often confusing world of nutrition in Prader Willi Syndrome. Thank you so much, Melanie, for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Very happy to be here today. I just want to say that, and we will get started. Okay. So I just want to thank everybody for having me. I really, really wish that I could be in person. I really loved attending these conferences. I've been able to attend a lot in the United States and also overseas, and it's just a real joy to meet families and just to try to provide some support and answer lots of questions that they have. And so what I did today is I've actually developed a new talk based on some of the things that I've been seeing lately. And so I'm very excited to present this to you. And for some of you, this may be review. For others of you, it may be something new, but I'm hoping that this lands in some way, somehow, for everybody who's here today. So the objectives for today are threefold. The first is to examine your own relationship with food. This is a new topic for me to discuss with you because of what I've been seeing for about the last decade. The food records that come in, the parents who call me and ask questions or email me, when they start to talk about their own relationship with food, I've become quite concerned. And I think that we need to take a beat and examine our own relationship with food before we actually start to dive into how we care for a family member, a loved one with Prader Willi Syndrome. So we're going to spend a couple minutes on that because I think it's really important. And then we're going to dive right in to emphasize that diets offering sources of protein, fat, and nutrient-dense carbohydrates are important in nutrition in Prader Willi Syndrome. And the third is to discuss the importance of planning meals and rules around eating and exercise. So, when I go to these conferences and I meet all of you, one of the things that I often will do is I'll look at the audience. So I may be listening to somebody speak, but I often like to see what's going on with you. And there's varying looks on all of your faces. It's certainly looks of like, you looked overwhelmed. You look, there's a lot of information to process. You're trying to balance not only your maybe child with Prader Willi Syndrome, but also your other children, your marriage or your divorce or whatever it is. There's a lot of life happening in these audiences. And what I started thinking about lately is, in terms of my profession, you didn't sign up to be a nutritionist. And you are being forced to be one. And that is not fun for some people. And so I just want to honor that and say today, I signed up for this. I love my job. I have the best job in the world, but you didn't sign up for this. But the bottom line is this: when you have kids, you become a nutritionist, whether you want to or not. So everybody in the United States, all 4 million births a year, these parents should be in this talk today, because everybody needs this talk on what to feed your child and how to feed. Certainly with Prader Willi Syndrome, there's differences, but the premise of it is the same. So I'm sorry that you're forced into this situation. I really hope in my deep heart that I can help you through this a little bit today, make you feel more empowered, like you have more control over things when you may not feel like that. So that first objective is to examine your own relationship with food. And this is tough. This is tough to do. because your relationship to food is part of how you feed your family, what you feed yourself. And so it's really important to take a look at that. And what has happened over the last 10 years is I'm just seeing food records that don't have a lot of variety, or they're high in fat and protein, or they're low in fat and protein, or there's just all this stuff going on. And when I start to kind of dive deeper and hear what's going on with people personally, I'm starting to notice things. I think the biggest frustration for nutrition, especially in Prader Willi syndrome, is that it is not black and white. And we're in a culture, like, if you want something, you could just go order it. I mean, if you want something, you want a good mascara, you can just find a good mascara. You get the reviews, the ratings, you get it. It's not that easy. Nutrition is really hard. And it's not, even dietitians don't have the answer. And so I think you have to have some grace when you're thinking about nutrition. You know, not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day can be perfect. And if you can get around that, you just kind of surf the waves of nutrition a little bit, as opposed to being very strict about what you're doing or what you're not doing, it may help you a little bit. I will tell you this, that I think the future of nutrition is very individualized, meaning that some of you may have to follow, believe it or not, a little bit of a lower fat diet. Some of you may have to have higher fat, higher protein. It just depends. I think some of you may be able to tolerate milk. Some of you may not be able to tolerate milk. And so making blanket generalizations, we do it all the time. I'm going to kind of do it today, is what we do now. But please know, in the future, I think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll see, oh, this person actually needs this. So when you're examining your own relationship with food, there's two ways you go about this. The first is you need to look at what you eat. That's pretty easy, right? If you're taking down a lot of cookies, I bet a lot of you know you shouldn't be taking down a lot of cookies. And so looking at what you eat, are you having fruits and vegetables? Are you getting good sources of fat? Are you limiting sweets and sugary beverages? Those kinds of things. Take a look at that. Sometimes people say, you know, keep a 3-day food record just to see where you are, just to say, oh gosh, I eat blueberries every day. Maybe I should mix that up and have some strawberries in there once in a while. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are pretty on the side of looking at your overall eating, is really kind of easy to look at compared to how you eat. Okay, so that is where I find fascinating. It's really the psychology around eating. So if you look at this guy, he's standing up, he's eating a cookie, he's distressed, it got all over his tie. It's not a very comfortable, calm, nurturing situation. You know, are people using forks, knives, and spoons when they eat? Are you eating over the sink? Did you peel that orange and eat it over the sink or the trash? You know, these kinds of things, we have to look at that. Are you eating in front of the television? What are you doing? Because the vast majority of people do this. People eat when they are not hungry, and they do not stop when they are full. People do not seem to understand when they need to eat. Now, in Prader Willi syndrome, again, this is different, but what we're trying to talk about now is just really examining who you are, how you deal with food, and then how is that going to define how you feed your family, your loved ones. So when you're examining your relationship with food, again, this can be triggering. It can be upsetting sometimes, because it may bring up some things and you may not even realize, oh my gosh, I eat like this because of one of these maybe bullet points, but how you were raised, looking at what your introduction to food was in your home. Maybe you were food insecure. This happens a lot. I meet lots of patients that were raised with kind of living paycheck by paycheck. They didn't always have enough money for food. They were eating, 15-cent noodles a lot of times during the month if money didn't come in. And so this really it may make you anxious around food. Maybe when you have food, you can't stop eating food because you remember, oh my God, I didn't have enough food growing up. So these kinds of things dictate kind of your relationship to food and how you eat. You may have had family members, or you had an eating disorder when you were younger. And now you have to care for a loved one who has Prader Willi syndrome. I have met a lot of families exactly like this, that had an eating disorder, really tried very hard to move through that, get the help that they need. And then they have a child with Prader Willi syndrome, and it's triggering and it brings up some things. And so it's okay. You're not alone, is what I will say. And also it's something that we need to talk about and deal with, so that you can do a really good job of feeding your loved ones. Family members, or you, if you are obese, This may be very difficult for you because you're dealing with your own food issues, and now you have to deal with trying desperately to prevent morbid obesity. If you were part of the Clean Plate Club growing up, you know who you are. People forced you to finish your food. You had to eat plates and plates. Maybe it didn't affect you very much and you just kind of blew it off. But for some of you, this has been a trauma, and this has been hard, and you don't really understand when you're hungry and when you're full. And then divorced families with conflicting messages about, at mom's house, you do this, at dad's house, you do this. And so again, all of this, you come to the table to this talk today to hear about Prader Willi syndrome, but I do want you to just take a beat and get help if you need it, really. For yourself, there are incredible registered dietitians out there talking about intuitive eating. If you have issues around food and eating, please do not sign up for 1,200 calorie diets for yourself. That is not, and again, I'm talking about people that do not have Prader Willi syndrome, please, but intuitive eating, I want you to read about it and think about it and see. It's very eye-opening, and there's registered dietitians on Instagram. Actually, if you just go to Instagram and type in intuitive eating, you'll see a lot of hashtags on that, and they'll connect you to dietitians who are so savvy with this and so who really bring up some really interesting points that I think you should look out. Please go see a psychologist and explain. And ahead of it, don't sit with a psychologist that's horrible, please. There's amazing psychologists out there, but you really have to sift and make sure this person can understand what you're going through so they can sit with you and work with you, and they maybe have an understanding of food. And then marital and partner counseling, I think, is really crucial. Please, don't sit there alone. You have a lot that you have to deal with supporting somebody with Prader Willi syndrome, but I really am thinking of you today. I'm thinking of you and sending as much support and just acknowledgement of what you have to go through in your situation. So that was it for that. Let's move to our second objective, and that is to emphasize that diets offering sources of protein, fat, and nutrient-dense carbohydrates are important sources of nutrition in Prader Willi syndrome. So again, I get a lot of calls like, Melanie, I think broccoli is the most amazing, important food out there. And I don't know if you know what these are. I didn't know what these were. I live in California now, but I'm from Columbus, Ohio. And passion fruit is something that I tried for the first time when I was in California. And it is incredible. I don't know if you ever had it. It's amazing. It seems like it should be magical because it's so lovely, but it's not. There isn't any magical food or supplement for nutrition. So before the pandemic, I used to go to parties, not very much, but then, people will sometimes say, what do you do for a living? And I say, well, I'm a dietitian and a lactation consultant. And they're like, wait, oh my gosh, I have to tell you about my kale smoothie. So I honestly cannot tell you how many people have said to me that they're so proud of this smoothie that they have every morning. And they have to tell me what they put in there. They put the celery and the kale and the spinach and the avocado and the oat milk and all this stuff. And they say, Melanie, isn't that amazing? I have it every day, 7 days a week. And I sit there and I have to, sometimes I lie if I'm very tired. I say, that's great. And then I remember, I really work primarily in pediatrics, and this is why, because this is a little bit crazy. But I really try to explain to people, we don't really know what's in anything. You can shop at the local, very high priced food store, I won't name it, but and think that everything's okay. But really, I have learned over time that I think that variety is really, really important. And so what I try to encourage people to do is, yes, you can absolutely have that kale smoothie. That sounds lovely. But then maybe the next day, why don't you scramble some eggs and have some avocado? Maybe the next day, why don't you have some oatmeal and some pecans? And then the next day, why don't you have some fruit salad and cottage cheese or something like that? I just really believe in everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard, that variety is really, really important. And gosh, I really can't tell you. It's been a lot of kale smoothie discussions. So what is nutrition? having a kale smoothie every morning, in my eyes, is not good nutrition. Now, if you're, I don't want to alienate anybody because I really just, I like to bring people together. But if you have a smoothie every day and you say, I really want this, Melanie, can you just mix up the ingredients, please? And have different things. That would make me happy. But I'm really into this variety thing. I think it's really, really important. So we're going to talk just a few moments. It's so weird to sit here by myself in my office and not have an audience. I usually have a lot of people in front of me, but I don't know where everybody is. So this may be reviews. So you can go get some tea or something if you want while I talk about this. But for some of you, I just want to clarify this. So calories, when we talk about calories, how many calories does that person need? How many calories does that person need? Calories are comprised of 3 components, okay? Protein, fat, and carbohydrate. So what happens in nutrition and what we've heard in Prader Willi syndrome over the years is people are manipulating the percentages of their total calories. So let's say they're eating 1,200 calories or 1,500 calories a day. They're playing with the percentages, the protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Maybe they're giving a lot of protein or fat and maybe very low carbohydrates, or they're giving moderate carbohydrates and some protein and fat. So when you're hearing that, I know you all are on those Facebook. I know you're all on those groups. I know it. I'm not in those groups, but I hear about the groups. And so you're manipulating these types of things, and we're trying to figure out what is best. And also, more importantly, everybody, what is doable? What is sustainable? Because it's hard to figure out what to feed yourself every day. And, if you're concentrating and counting and doing all this stuff, it becomes oppressive. And I want it to be less so. But just understand that is kind of what's happening in the field now. And we're trying to figure out what is the best percentages. And I think we're coming close to understanding that. But again, this is individualized, maybe different for some of your families. You may be doing something differently. So let's just start here. Calories are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Now, foods can be a mixture of all 3 of these things. So there's foods out there that actually, like milk, for instance. Milk has carbohydrate, protein, and fat in it. So it's a mixture of all 3 macronutrients. Yogurt, that's another example. Anyways, foods can be a mixture of 2. So let's say almonds, for instance, are protein and fat. And then foods can also be one like oil, which is mostly fat. So there's different, it's a lot of moving parts in nutrition. Now, if you are lost and you're like, I don't really understand any of this stuff, I don't know what's going on, a good place to start, there's a lot of numbers on here. I'm not the biggest fan of this food label, but I don't get to make the decisions. But what you can look at here is you can see, there's the calories, 230. The total fat is 8 grams. The total carbohydrate is 37 grams, and the protein is 3 grams. And it's sometimes good if you're just trying to learn initially about what is going on in nutrition. Turn over the things in your house, please. Take a look at what is going on in the cereal that you're buying, or the rice, or the eggs. They have nutrition labels on there, and it's really interesting to look at it and say, okay, this is what Melanie was talking about, carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Oh, that's very interesting. There's not that much protein in whatever. And so that will help you. There's a lot of numbers here. We're not going to get to all these numbers today, but at least I just wanted you to understand what the basics of how calories are made. Now, there's also fiber, water, vitamins, minerals. You hear about micronutrients, macronutrients, all these buzzwords around. All of this helps your body function. You need fiber to help you poop. That is just the truth, okay? And so you need to understand what has fiber, what are good sources of fiber, making sure you have enough hydration because we don't want anybody getting constipated or any kind of other problems in their gut. Vitamins and minerals are important. So it's a lot of moving parts, but eating a wide variety of different foods, fresh foods, which we'll talk about, mostly fresh, gives you that opportunity to have a great chance of getting good nutrition. And so that's why I think that's why we discuss all this. So these are just visual. Everybody always says that this lecture makes them a little hungry. So if it's around lunch, I'm sorry. Anyways, so protein. These are examples of protein that we have: salmon, eggs, chicken, the dairy, and there's about 4 calories per gram. So if you put some protein on a scale, per gram of that protein, it would be about 4 calories of energy. Fat, we have oils and avocado. Fat is very dense. It adds a lot of calories, but we know now that there are certain fats that are very good for you. We've been talking about this for a while. I mean, there's healthy fats, which I'm showing you there: avocado, nuts, those kinds of things. And then there's unhealthy fats saturated fats that may not be so healthy for you, that may increase your risk of heart disease. And so you really have to limit those. But fresh natural sources of fat, as opposed to getting something that's really fatty, baked goods or something like that, are just not going to be as healthy as fresh food when we're talking about fat. Now, carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables are actually considered carbohydrates. Vegetables are very low in calories. And then pastas, rice, those types of things are considered carbohydrates. So those are all the food groups. And what I try to do is try to, have all these different food groups at each meal. And, planning your menus and understanding nutrition can ensure that you have that good variety. So I hear this all the time. I know you do too, and I know you read about it. So good carbs versus bad carbs. The good things that you want to choose in the carbohydrate area are vegetables and fruits. I really, really want you to concentrate most of your effort on whole grains with more than 3 grams of fiber per serving. So I don't know what's happened to me, but when I started working at the University of Chicago in 1998, and whenever I flip over a food label, the very first thing that I look at is the fiber. I don't look at the calories. I don't look at the fat. I look at the fiber, because if it has more than 3 grams of fiber per serving, I'm not saying all the time, it probably is healthy. I'm not saying all the time, but a good amount of time, I think it may be pretty healthy. So that is a good place to land. If you look at the food label and you're like, this is so crazy, this is too much. What did she say? Look at the grams of fiber. Now you need to look at the ingredient list too, which we'll talk about next. But beans, peas, lentils, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, these kind of things are good for you and your loved one with Prader Willi Syndrome in a wide variety of ways. Now limit, as you see here, bad carbs, this is my opinion. And this is what I've seen with families I've worked with for some of people a decade, that they do actually let their child and or adult have candy, cakes, cookies, juices, muffins, ice creams, donuts once in a while. But the way that they are successful in their own situation is they are really good about exercising, about structured meals and snacks, about eating, which we'll talk about, nutrient-dense foods, mostly choosing carbs, good carbs versus these carbs. And so I get a lot of questions on Easter and Halloween and Hanukkah and all these questions. What are we supposed to do for these holidays? Can we give him one piece of candy? And yes, please make it special. Don't make him running around like eating the candy. Make it a savoring event. But yes, for sure. I mean, I think that's one of the questions I've probably heard the most. So what is, after all this time, now here we are, what is optimal nutrition in Prader Willi syndrome? So I've said this, I hope I've convinced you, I really do, that a healthy diet has variety. And it's also more fun to eat, I think, unless you have picky eater issues or you have some food restrictive diagnosis. I understand that. I have a lot of compassion for that. But if you can, to try very hard to eat yourself a variety of foods and also offer your family. The other thing is a healthy diet has mostly fresh foods. So I've said this for years. It's probably going to be boring for some of you, but when you walk into the grocery, you really need to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, because that is where all the fresh food is, right? It's against the corners of the grocery store because that's where the refrigeration is, because that is why, foods spoil. So foods that spoil are actually healthier for you. And I think Michael Pollan, who's written a lot about food, has discussed this, that if the food spoils, that is going to be healthier for you because it's fresher, it's closer to nature. And so shopping the perimeter of the grocery is really, really important. Now, there's some things in the center aisles that are good, right? Beans, oatmeal, nuts, those kinds of things are pretty healthy. There's some frozen, if you want to talk about smoothies again, there's, frozen fruit that you can use to make smoothies, of course, varying your smoothies. And so variety and fresh, remember that. Now, what is this? Somebody, what food is this? Yes, you can turn over food labels, but please, will you read your ingredient list? So the first thing I tell everybody to do after I stop these lectures is, but before I end, I say, please go home. If you don't know what you're doing after this lecture, just go home and look at the ingredient labels on the stuff in your house that you're eating. If it has these kinds of things, you have got to throw that thing out. This is not appropriate. I don't even know what this is. Well, I don't even know. It's got food dyes. It's a polysorbate 60. I don't know what that is. So it seems to me that this shouldn't be part of what you eat at all, probably. So look at the food labels, look at what's happening with the nutrition in general, but then also look at the food label. So like I said before, you know, there's lots of talk about ketogenic, modified Atkins, paleo, and we've seen this, and I've seen young kids who are on some of these diets. And I really don't want to make blanket generalizations because I don't know everybody's histories. I don't know who your doctors are or your dietitians are, but all I know is this, that we have seen young children who are on these maybe lower carbohydrate diets and they're not doing well. They're tired. They're not growing great. We have to add more carbohydrates to them. And I think it's dangerous. I think that we need to be really careful about what we're doing. And so manipulating the percentages too much is not a great idea. And so please be mindful of that because your baby is growing, your child is growing, and it's such a massive dynamic situation that you need to be careful. So I think this is where we're landing nowadays. If you're asking me, what are the percentages, Melanie? I think it's around 45% carbohydrate, 25% protein, and 30% fat. This comes from Dr. Miller's study. And it still seems like we're landing about there. There are some changes. Please understand that's why I put that little about in front of those percentages, but that's kind of where we're landing. These apps that you may be using to look at calories when you do, they should show you the percentages so you can see. We've come such a long way with these apps. I think they're pretty incredible, but that's about where we are. Now, let me tell you something interesting. Well, I find it interesting. In the United States, the carbohydrate average is, high, like 55, 60%. Protein is kind of low and fat is just the wrong fats. So we eat a very high carbohydrate diet in the United States. So, having like a sandwich and pretzels with 2 pieces of bread and then pretzels, that really throws your carbohydrates up there. So this is kind of where we're landing. Again, there are differences and changes, and some people may tolerate something different than the other, but going very high on fat, 80, 90% has not really shown, in my experience, to be beneficial to humans with Prader Willi syndrome. Where we're landing is the Mediterranean diet. The American Heart Association has definitions of this. This is basically what I've been saying. Plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grain breads, potatoes, beans, nuts, and seeds. Olive oil is a source of fat. It's a good monounsaturated fat. Dairy products, eggs, fish, and poultry, and minimally processed foods. And so when you're like, what is a minimally processed food, Melanie? Well, what you can do, like I said, is turn over those food labels and take a look. And if it is just a ton of stuff, you need to throw it out. So again, some support recently on Mediterranean diet, beautiful research studies to read, very exciting. It's not just about, I'm going to feed my child with Prader Willi syndrome a Mediterranean diet. It is good for all of us for now, right? I think there's going to be individualized nutrition prescription, but we really see this in the news all the time, that this is a very healthy way to live. So I don't just want your loved one with Prader Willi syndrome to be fed a Mediterranean diet. I would like you to try to eat in that direction as well. So nutrient dense foods, what does that mean? It's like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but what does that look like? So this is a very nutrient dense meal. Does look like white rice. Let's pretend it's brown rice. But like I said, once in a while, if you're having this, this is pretty healthy. To have a little scoop of rice like that is totally fine. There's protein there. Look at all those vegetables. Look at those colors. It looks like an art project, a very colorful art project. That's what you want your food to look like. It's a beautiful nutrient dense example. Look at this delicious salmon with that soy glaze, that yummy. Oh my God, that looks good. With the broccoli, very nutrient dense, brightly colorful meal. There's the oatmeal that I like to talk about. And usually if I've had children that were really given a very low carbohydrate diet, we sometimes introduce oatmeal. When we've done this, introduced oatmeal with some, nuts or some flax on it. made it in a little bit of milk, and they've actually had more energy. They started to gain more appropriate weight. And so oatmeal is a really good thing to go down your gut. Look at this omelet with all those vegetables. My goodness, little piece of wheat toast and some cantaloupe. I get excited about looking at food. Let's do this. Let's do some meal makeovers. So cereal, milk, and grapes. Let's say you had cereal, milk, and grapes. There's other ways to make this a little bit more nutrient dense. Oatmeal with milk, cinnamon, and pecans. If you have a tuna on bagel, bagels are delicious, but they're very starchy. They're thick. They're hundreds of calories. If you then add pretzels and an apple, I challenge you to maybe put the tuna on wheat bread or a tortilla. It's a little thinner. Maybe have some sliced cucumbers and an apple. Spaghetti, salad, and garlic bread. I think I have made this before. This eggplant lasagna is so good. You should all try it. It's been around forever, but it's really kind of fun to give it a try, because how many of you are buying eggplant? I don't know, but you should try it. So you roast the eggplant, you cut it into strips and you roast it, and then you use it as the noodles. And so it really increases the nutrient density. Chicken noodle soup with breadsticks, fish, roasted asparagus, and salad. You see what I'm doing here? I'm just kind of nutritioning, that's not even the right word, but I'm upgrading, right? 2.0. Tacos with hard shells, maybe changing it to a turkey taco salad. Bagel with cream cheese, very popular, but a whole wheat toast with peanut butter would be even better. Pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Why not try a whole wheat waffle with eggs and bacon once in a while? I think that's totally fine and very tasty for breakfast. I think it's very important that we talk about this. This has been brought up before to me, and something that patients with Prader Willi Syndrome can deal with, and that is slow stomach emptying. When I am advising, and I say this over and over again, and it says at the bottom, I am not your dietitian. I'm not your physician. You must discuss all of this with your medical team. It's a very good idea to bring in maybe a 3-day food record of what you're giving to your child to share with your physician. But you need to be aware of the signs and symptoms of gastroparesis. And a Mediterranean diet, if you are eating a very low fiber diet, I encourage you to start slowly and to see how your family and your loved one with Prader Willi syndrome reacts. But symptoms seen in gastroparesis include abdominal distension or bloating, pain, heartburn, vomiting, which we know is rare but can happen, regurgitation of stomach fluid into the mouth. And so the recommendations are, and this is really for everybody, is to encourage the family member with Prader Willi syndrome to chew food well. Everybody should be chewing their food well. Working with hydration, trying to get that liquid in is very, very important, although I know is challenging. A varied diet is very important. If you just keep eating broccoli and broccoli and broccoli, or, really just fibrous breads or crackers, that has got not good nutrition, and that can probably increase your risk of gastroparesis. So you want to vary the diet, monitor the stool output. Exercise is essential. I will talk about that in a couple minutes. I really, there should be a national campaign. There should be commercials during all the sporting events that every person should be exercising at least 30 minutes a day. It is extraordinarily important, and lands on a gastroparesis slide and should land on every slide in this talk. So a few more points. I just want to talk about calories. So when I started working in nutrition, you learn about calories and you learn about this person needs this and this person needs that. But what I started seeing with a lot of families that I would see over the past several years is that there was really fixation on calories. And I would say to people, I would challenge people, they'd call me and say, oh my God, Melanie, he gained 10 pounds, or the baby gained 5 pounds, or I don't know what to do. And so what do I need to slash? And they would show me their food records, like, well, should we just do this and do this and this? And I say, let's just hold on a second. Can we switch from 2% to 1% and just increase the exercise a little? And it worked. Counting calories is exhausting. It is exhausting. It is sometimes necessary. And I think that you do need to, at times, do a check-in. Where am I? Where are we with calories with my son or my daughter or whoever you're caring for? And see where they are. Because you sometimes need to check, and it's okay. But really taking a look at the food record, like what is being fed, and can we maybe limit that? Or what I prefer to do is exercise. Hey, can we increase exercise by 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day? I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this work, and it is such a relief for families that they're like, oh my God, I don't have to cut 5,000 calories from nothing. It's just a little something that helps, and you give it some time, and you stay patient, you stay calm, and you try to see if it can work. But it is miraculous because that's how the body works. I mean, it just could be a difference of 20 calories that would actually prevent further weight gain. So please, if you have to do it, I understand, but I really want you to release it, if you can. These are the apps. I'm sure you know more. And you're welcome. I mean, I always am open to anything that you want to tell me to increase the capacity of these lectures and to give more information to people. But MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Chronometer, and Spark People, if you want to download this and take a look at those, if you do need to do some calorie tracking, take a look and see where you are. But then very quickly, please try to pull back from that when you can. One of the questions that I get a lot about is artificial sweeteners. And so these are some of the artificial sweeteners, but there's new ones and there's different names for it. And I will just say this, people are trying to get family members with Prader Willi syndrome to drink water. And so there's a lot of these amazing, like the artwork on these, artificial sweetened beverages is pretty gorgeous. They're very enticing. They feel like a special drink because you're drinking them out of a beautiful bottle. But the problem is that they have artificial sweeteners in them, and these may cause sugar cravings. There's diarrhea with sugar alcohols that we've seen, and there's headaches. And so you really need to be aware. I would like people, if they can, to move away from them or wean off of these and try to flavor beverages in different ways. But please know, I mean, I've had people stand up during certain talks and they've said that these have been a problem in their loved ones with Prader Willi syndrome. And so, and themselves too, that they get headaches, they don't feel good. And so it is best to try to avoid, if you are in it right now, which I totally understand, maybe trying to replace slowly. So that brings me to the hydration issue, because again, a lot of people are using these. So years ago, a family I've known for many years, and they know who they are, gave me the best advice to give to my patients. And what they did was they actually said to everybody at the table, okay, everybody can have their food, but you have to drink a cup of water before. And it was like a beautiful moment. I know this cannot probably work for everybody, but if it can work for you, it will help to increase the hydration status in your child or adult. And so there's lots of different things you can do: cucumbers and lemons, crushed mint leaves, cinnamon sticks and apples. There's herbal teas, oranges and limes, and put a lot in there, because I've actually seen this at, like, I haven't been out much, of course, lately, but pre-COVID, I have seen a lot of these type of waters being served, and they do actually put quite a bit in there. To really saturate the water and make it taste good. And so there's also really cool water bottles now that we have had some success with. They are expensive sometimes, but that kind of helps too. And I really just appreciate that advice. And I hope that would help others, encouraging everybody to drink a glass of water first before you get your food. It helps to support the hydration. Look at this kitchen. I found this picture and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a lovely kitchen. This is something I need to put a slide on. People will come at me and say, well, I don't do this, or I just need to say that locking cabinets and refrigerators, I've had lots of discussions with new families about this, and it is a very emotional situation. There's so much more support now around this. And so I think there's other families that are supporting families. But the reality is this, that when you lock your cabinets and refrigerators, you prevent binge eating, you prevent excessive weight gain, you prevent anxiety and guilt over being able to find food for the loved one with Prader Willi syndrome. And it also, for you, for caregivers, it prevents constant surveillance of food sources. So it is something to bring up, and something you should talk about with your family. But I think it's really important that I do bring that up, because it provides a safe environment in certain situations. So let's see where we are. Oh, we're doing well. So resources, I learned from you. And so these are just some of the things that I found over the years. I still really like that Cooking Light site. I don't know if you all like that. You should go there. They have everything under the sun. The food is pretty good that comes out of there. I think they have the calories listed there just to give you an idea. So they're excellent. The Food Network, I think, has some really good chefs there that you can take a look at. I don't know if you know about Smitten Kitchen, but she's got a funny way about her, and she does a really good job of recreating recipes. New York Times, All Recipes, infant and toddler nutrition for all my new parents out there. Wholesome baby food is excellent. I had a couple, I think I was in Texas. This family came up and says, Melanie, Pinterest is the best. They have so many recipes. We just type in what we want. We find these amazing recipes for our family. And so I added that in honor of them. And then I just found Half Baked Harvest. Again, I want to tell you something, like these are sites with delicious food. These are sites that celebrate food. These are sites that use fresh food. And so you don't have to become a chef. If you're like, I really don't want to do this, Melanie, that's okay. You can make it very simple. But these are just ideas for you in planning. So I'm going to say it again. Talk to your doctor before starting any new diet. I want everybody in your medical home to know what's going on. I think it's very important. All right. So shifting gears here to discuss the importance of planning meals and rules around eating and exercise. So I do this every week and I hate it, but I do it. And I'm asking you to do it. I hate it and I'm a dietitian, but it's the only way to get through the week. So every single week, to get a hold of yourself, the first thing I told you to do is go look in your cabinets and make sure there's not too much ingredient lists. You know, I don't want to see like 75 ingredients on the stuff that you're eating in your house. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to make a list of what you're going to eat for the week. Now, here's what I tell people. On a Thursday, that is the day you got to get down to business. So on a Thursday, or maybe Friday, but on a Thursday, you say, okay, what are we going to do from Sunday to Saturday next week? You make a list of your weekly meals. Go through your kitchen, see what you have. Maybe you have some meals already. You don't have to go pick stuff up at the store, but make a list of your weekly meals. Okay, then you make a shopping list, all right? And then you make the shopping trip, okay? But making your list of weekly meals, it's a chore, and you have a million things going on and a million jobs and a million responsibilities, but I'm telling you, it will take the pressure off you. So many people have said, Melanie, if they come to me, not even for Prader Willi Syndrome, but picky eating, food allergies, poor weight gain, whatever I'm trying to help them with, this is such a good thing to land. It's your anchor. It is your nutritional food anchor for the week for you and your family. And so please commit, because it will help. It really will. Now, when you then have the food in the house and you prepared it, here is my suggestions around eating. So first is eat together as much as possible. Now, just 1 second, excuse me. I know that people have different schedules. I know that some of you work nights. I know it. And so this is very hard. And so what I ask is as much as possible. So really try, if you can, even snacks, to sit down and be together, because there is so much research to show the importance of family meals. The other thing is to set limits and structure and follow through. So what I've done with some families is we actually post rules. So we don't throw food, we don't scream at the table, we don't, and this is for kids, this is for all children. There should be limits and structure around eating and how we behave at the table. We put our napkin in our lap, it's very hard to tell a 2-year-old to do that. Maybe not at 2, but when they're older, teaching them how to be a human, how to be a graced human, it's really important to do that. Eating similar foods. I have some families, maybe there's food allergies in the families, and of course that can't always happen. But if it can happen, please try to make it happen. Eating similar foods doesn't make people sometimes feel different. And so trying to eat that. I've had many situations where moms are eating salads when everybody else is maybe having a hamburger and salad or something like that. And if you can eat all together, that's really a lovely thing. No technology while eating. I have to sometimes hold myself back when I go to the restaurant and I see people putting iPads in front of their kids. Now, I know sometimes you have to, because maybe you're out to dinner with a bunch of people and the child will be crazy and everything, but really try other things, especially when they're eating. Let them eat. They need to understand when they're younger, especially when they're hungry and when they're full. And so no technology while eating for anybody, please, just for a little bit, put the phone down. It's important for you too. When you are distracted, you do something called mindless munching and you'll just kind of sit there and keep going. You really need to sit there and relax and breathe and eat and tune into what's happening with you in your eating. Locking cabinets and refrigerators to prevent access. We talked about that before. So I land on this slide and I really, when people say they're gaining too much weight, Melanie, I don't even talk about food yet. I don't even talk about food. I talk about exercise. And that is where you must land. Even if it is 5 minutes, I'd like it to be way more than that, but you've got to get people up and moving. Everybody in the house has got to. I have to say this, I am not a COVID-19 expert at all, but I will say when they said to everybody, masks, social distancing, wash your hands, I prayed that they would say, and 30 minutes of exercise every day. Okay. They didn't say that, but I've become so much of an exercise advocate, so much more than I ever even was before, because we know even from COVID that people who were exercising, and unfortunately, sadly, some people did die that were very, very healthy, but we do know that it's just so important to keep your body healthy. I've had patients who are in wheelchairs before, and they've asked me about this, and they've gotten clearance from their doctors to lift weights, to just move their arms, to move their body in different ways for 15, 20 minutes a day. To burn calories, to build muscle, to be able to manage the food intake that they're taking. So I'm landing here, I'm staying here for a while because I want to emphasize its importance. So please, if you start to see weight gain, you start to see things go out of control, even before you look at the food record, look at the exercise. So, this is good. Optimal nutrition and Prader Willi syndrome, here's where we land. I would like you to offer a variety of nutrient-dense fresh foods. I'd like you to structure meals and snacks and eat together at the table as much as you can. No phones or tablets or other devices while eating. Lock your cabinets, refrigerators to keep children and adults safe. Intensive, frequent physical activity, of course, with your doctor's permission. Watch closely for signs of gastroparesis, and then please speak to your doctor about all diet changes. So I want to thank you for your time. It is, again, very weird not having an audience. I hope that this was helpful to some of you, and I would love to take your questions now.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Again, that was a wonderful presentation, as always, that we get from you. We do have some questions, but first, before I get to that, I just want to, somebody had a comment that said, thank you for your acknowledging that we are forced into becoming a nutritionist. It's always a source of frustration, even without PWS. My heart is now excited to hear your presentation. So that was sweet. I wanted to share that.
That's really sweet. Yeah.
So the first question is, would you be able to shed some light on carbonated drinks and how they affect bone health for something healthy like seltzer water?
Yeah. So I you know what, I had that in my, that is a good question, because I had it in the lecture before and then I took it out. Again, I'm going to land on a wide variety of different foods. So drinking seltzer water every single day, or a wide variety of everything. Drinking seltzer every day as a source of hydration, I think try to do some other things. I don't know what's going to happen. I have to say that I am not up on the research. I can't answer the bone health with seltzer water. I feel like there's conflicting data on that. And so I'm not the expert to know that, but what I am the expert on is a wide variety of different food and drink. And so people using seltzer water every day, try to do some different things just to mix it up a little bit. Because I don't know what the effect is drinking. I mean, look what I have right here. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what the effect is doing it every day, but I would just advise for a wide variety of drinks if you can.
All right, thank you. Here's another question for you. Good carbs. What if someone suffers from calcium oxalate-based kidney stones and can't eat green leafy vegetables, beans, berries, nuts, etc.? How does that person find an alternate for fresh foods to those things?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that is why I really tried hard during this whole thing to be all encompassing, right? To understand that everybody's going to have different needs and thoughts and experiences and gut reactions and bone reactions and different diagnoses. And so I think that you have to do what you can. I mean, I think in that situation, it's really important to see a dietitian, a local dietitian, to see if there's deficiencies, if there's a vitamin mineral supplement that needs to be started. And so I would advise that and acknowledge too, yeah, there's some people that can't do that. There's some people that have diverticulitis and they're not supposed to have seeds. So excellent question. I would go see somebody to make sure that you can push together a diet that would work.
Thanks, Melanie. All right. The next question, does sun butter have any nutritional value as an alternative to nut butter for nut-free places like school?
I feel like sun butter is pretty good. I'd have to see the food label. I would have to see the, isn't it sunflower seeds? I mean, that's what I hope that we're talking about the same thing, but I think it can be an option. But again, I'm going to say this, you're going to get so tired of me, but saying it, having a wide variety as best you can do. Now it's hard sometimes when you're packing lunches and you don't have a lot of options and you're looking for a protein option, but I think that sun butter can be usable. Look at the label, make sure there's not a lot of added sugar in there and other fillers and stuff, but I think it's a viable option.
All right, let's see. The next one, my daughter is a vegan for more moral and spiritual reasons. Therefore, her son with Prader Willi Syndrome, who is 6, is being raised vegan. I'm in full support, but it occurs to me to ask any evidence this is not good for those with Prader Willi Syndrome.
I don't have any evidence on that. I mean, I in a situation like this, I am supportive too. Let me just say I'm supportive, but I really think that you should engage with a local dietitian to take a look at the diets. Because there's things you may need to be supplemented on vegan diets. Well, I know there are. So you really need to have somebody who's in the profession take a look at it. But I worked with families who raised their kids vegan for years. And, I mean, I think that I can't comment on them with Prader Willi Syndrome, but I think it really requires a healthcare professional that works in nutrition to look at the diet and make sure that it's adequate.
All right, let's see. The next question, is the red, yellow, green diet still appropriate?
Oh, I don't know. It's a great question. And I know it's practiced. I know that people use it. And I actually I will say the positive thing that I like about it is that I like the categories of it. I think that's kind of interesting because red, we all know what a stoplight is, right? We know red, yellow, and green. It's kind of a universal thing. I'm not the one to say, because again, I know there's massive places that use this. I'm just saying what we've seen and some of the research that's coming out. So I'm not the one to say that this is over, but I think as more research comes out, I think everybody needs to pay attention and say, maybe we need to individually take a look at what we're doing here and adjust. I think let me just say this, Christy. I think for people that really do not know about nutrition, that have like a really hard time kind of understanding it to begin with, I think it's a good launch pad. But again, I think we need to pay attention to what's happening. And there's other research and there's clinical experience that, different people are having with their patients that I think we need to pay attention to. We know better now about certain things. So I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
No, that was helpful. And I think it's a good place to start, right? For people to look if they aren't sure even what's healthy and not healthy.
Yeah. And what happens, like, I really feel for people. Like I used to do grocery tours way back when, and, I don't know, like you walk into this grocery store and you're like, what is all this stuff? What does it have in it? Is it healthy for me? Why is this not healthy or this is healthy? So I think if you are really lost and then you have somebody that in your family that has Prader Willi Syndrome, it is a shock and you've got to be brought up to speed very, very quickly. And so the red, yellow, green, I think is like a good, like, oh, okay. I can get my bearings. Like I figured out what I need to do initially, but then I think it's important to engage with people and try to figure out, read the research, attend meetings like you are to hear what people are doing.
All right. We have about 5 minutes left. Let's see.
Do we have a lot of questions, Christy?
Yeah, there's some more. We're probably not going to get to all of them, unfortunately. So people have questions about fats. Mm-hmm. Is lower fat better?
So lower fat. So when we talk about fat is a lot of different things. That's what you need to understand. So there's polyunsaturated fats, there's monounsaturated fats, and there's saturated fats. And so you have to understand the different foods have different types of fats in them. And so concentrating on healthier fats would be like olive oil, avocado, the fat in nuts, the fat in salmon. Okay. Those kind of fats are good for you. I did put bacon on my slide, but I wanted to show you that that's okay once in a while. But bacon fat, hydrogenated fats in the stores, those kinds of things are different fats. And so we have to be careful. So you can have a moderately fat diet that's actually a pretty healthy fat diet if you're choosing those right foods.
All right. I'm just reading through. I'm trying to see if
Oh,
there's
that's
which
okay.
one.
This is great.
How about with the carb percentage you shared, is there an optimal breakdown between veggies, fruits, and complex
Oh,
grains?
that is a really good question. And I have to think about that. Um, that's a really, really good question. Again, that is an excellent question. Where I can land with that is, again, the way that you're going to probably optimally get the nutrition that you need is to offer a variety. So, think about this, like you wouldn't having just a bowl of broccoli for dinner, like it's not a good idea. It's kind of healthy maybe once, but like it's really about, getting into the weeds of that whole thing. I mean, I think that's I've never had that question asked before, and I love that. It's a good question to try to think about what the portions are. But I think when you're looking at like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just trying to kind of mix it up a little bit and offer a variety. If it's veggie heavy for lunch, maybe make it a little bit less veggie heavy for dinner, and that you would have a little side, some rice and chicken or something, because you had a bunch of that, like a salad for lunch or something like that. So that's kind of how that works. You have to kind of look at the food groups within. But I'd have to look that up if there's like certain percentages. That is really a pretty deep question. Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, with that, we have a ton more questions. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them, but maybe we can send them to you and get the responses down the road here for everybody. I want to thank you again, Melanie, so much for your time and for coming. Make sure that everybody closes out of this section. After you answer the survey, make sure you answer our survey for us and then log back into the next session. Thank you all so very much for being here. And Melanie, thanks again for all that you do for our community.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Take care.